over to Simon for the first of your two questions.
Thanks, Greg. Hi, Heimir. I'm fascinated by the appropriate level of challenge that is needed to ensure that young people make progress. I find if practices are too easy, we can create inflated egos without any progress. But if it's too challenging, however, we risk students avoiding the task or not engaging with it fully, as they don't wish to be seen to be failing. I find the high-performing sports students I work with sometimes have the most fragile egos. When you were the national coach of Iceland, you clearly had to push players to perform at levels that nobody from Iceland had ever performed at. How did you manage this?
Yeah, I think it's two different things. To coach the professionals, the elite athlete versus the farmer student. Probably the players I was coaching at that level, they already pushed the limits. They already did the hard work, so they were already there, and probably along the way they lost a lot of their friends who could not make it, who were not able to push to the limits, and most of these guys at these levels are self-motivated, so should not be a national team's coach job to motivate people, and for them to do something never done before probably is kind of natural, to push the limits and try to win, always try to win, to do something for the first time. Probably it was just a good motivation for them. At least this group was in this way. I think though, because I coach youth, I coach kids for a long time. I think that is so individual, and I think physical education is becoming more and more individual coaching, and yeah, I think it's both this and the motivational factor is so individual. You have to adapt to the person you are coaching, how you can approach him to do what you want him to do and what he needs to do. I think it's so difficult to make a one thing fits all in this case. I'm not sure. I'm not like physical coach like you are, but I think this is more and more becoming an individual thing, and this is why I think technology can help us a lot in this area.
You said the players that you worked with Iceland all had the right mentality by the time they got to your squad. Do you think it's possible to reach that level of performance without that mentality on talent alone?
No, I don't think so, because on the way you have to push yourself so much to all the limits. You have to, all the hurdles you have to jump. And if you don't have that mentality, you will somewhere on the way you will stop. How you develop it is then totally a different question.
Well, I think that might be a really nice link to where Andy's line of inquiry. So yeah, Andy, over to you to pick up the story, pick up the conversation.
Yeah, so what really fascinates me is how we can bring out the best in people, you know? And a lot of the work that I do with teachers is about making them the best at what they do so that they can best serve their students, you know? And you've answered a little bit of what I wanted you to ask you, but it really comes down to relationships, as you said, and knowing the players. And we know based on research that approaching our coaching or approaching our teaching in one way for all students or all players doesn't work. So when you think about managing a high performing team, what I want to ask you is more about the relationships that exist and how you're able to really assess the needs of your players, to know mentally where they're at, and to build that relationship where trust is really obviously very important, but to build that relationship in a way that honors the players and the talents that they have, but also there are areas of limitation and areas of needed improvement. So how do you manage the relationships that you have with players to bring out their best and to help you coach your best?
Yeah, it connects a little bit to building a good team, to do a team building thing. Number one, I think the working environment when you are a coach, when you're a teacher, especially in my case with the national team, working environment is absolutely vital. The most important thing, in my opinion. So, because number one, we have players who are really different characters, like in your school, different characters. They come from different countries, different continents, different teams with different culture, and professionals like continuity. They need stability. But when they come here, everyone has to accept that this is the way we do it here, because this guy likes to do it on this way, and another guy likes to do it in that way, and we cannot do it like this when we are Iceland national team. So I learned this from Lars Lagerbäck, who was the head coach when I was assistant coach. When he started, there was a meeting after meeting about this is the way we do things. When we are an Icelandic national team, this is how we do things, how we speak to the media, how we dress, how we eat, when we train, how we train. And we all accept it. So it was not like a rule from the leader. This is how I would like to see it, he said. And then you can change if you want to change it. Now, this is the Icelandic national team. There's something special with Icelanders. So we do it a little bit different. And you have something to say. And this was our agreements. So we did not have any rules. We made an agreement about how we should do things. So when the players came, even though they did not like what we did, they already had accepted it. So it was their rules, not someone from there. It was easy to break the rules, but they were breaking an agreement between all of us if they didn't do this. I think this is so important. But when you have this, then you have to look at the individual. Maybe this individual needs to do more work. He needs more psychology. He needs more feedback. So you have to individualize then the rest of your work. But this is what we do all together. We all agree upon this is how we do things. And now you're all English speaking. And if you can see the English national team and Gareth Southgate, which I think has done a marvelous job at this, it looks like a really good unit. Even the media is treating the English national team really well. And I think this is because now everybody knows what he's trying to do. Everybody knows what kind of football he wants to play and how he wants the players to behave. They all agree upon it, and they look really like a solid unit. But I think these are two things, and especially in group sports, you have to have the working environment agreed by everyone, and then you have to go down to the first step and then the second step. If it answers your question a little bit, of course you can lead it in many directions. But for me, this is my experience.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, thanks. That's a lovely insight, and hopefully when you lay those foundations, nothing goes wrong. But I think Simon's got a question related to that about when things do go wrong. So over to you, Simon.
Thanks. So it follows on nicely from what Andy's question about one size fits all, and actually answered in part some of the question. But the school environment can be quite authoritarian and have set policies that apply consistently when a student does something wrong. For example, one of the rules at our school is if there's certain poor behaviours displayed by a student, they have a 2-week cooling off period from representing the school. And that's to help the students see the link between representing the school and their sport, but also the bigger picture about being a good person and making good life choices. How do you manage the team discipline, maybe when things don't go well? And has your approach varied with the different teams you've coached? And on a little supplementary, if I may, if there's a player with exceptional talent, sometimes they're called genius if they're a little bit eccentric as well and maybe kind of don't always play by the rules. Would you consider them in your team if they weren't playing by the disciplinary rules?
The last question is a good journalist question. I've answered that one quite often. And normally we said if this player will affect the team more than he does with his talents, then we will not select, even though he would be superior technically or whatever. Because we built our success around having a good team. So this would be my question to the journalist who would be asking this question. Discipline, and again, touched upon what I said before to Andy's question. I think school is rules set not only by the principal, but from 30 years back, the same rules. And I read a lot about leadership, and today we have this shared leadership, to give authority to as many as possible, give them a part of not only the success or the journey, but give them being part of making the rules. I think this is, and I think we underestimate kids. They are so much more talented than we give them. And I think this is probably what I would suggest is find a way to stop all the rules and have agreements with the kids. So they are breaking their own rules. They are breaking the rules of their fellow students. Not only the principal's rules or the school rules. Probably today is just kind of fun. I don't know, but I think if we can give authority, if we can have like a shared leadership in what we are doing, and it should not undermine the guy in charge. I think it makes the guy in charge even stronger when he shares the leadership with others. I think this is the key to success, especially when you are in team sports, to give leadership to others.
I suppose the challenge comes when you're asking young people to take responsibility, and if they don't agree with a rule that you believe to be fundamentally important to the bigger picture, they haven't got that life experience to understand the value behind that rule. How you convince them that it's the right rule or the right agreements to make?
Probably a dentist and a football coach is not the guy to answer that question.
Thank you.
I think that's great. So we've veered from high performance sport into philosophies that sit behind democratic systems and democratic education. So I hope anyone listening and tuning in found that really insightful. I'd like to thank Marcella, Simon, Andy, and of course Heimir for your time.